Very
Hey,
warm
Julia.
welcome. And thank you very much for joining us for this session. It's a part of a special training week IALC is having for selling France as a language study destination. We are having numerous sessions delivered by IALC member schools to IALC agencies, and we have a special bonus. Nicola now presenting to IALC schools and IALC agents combined and talking about conversions. Very exciting. Are you ready?
It
I'm
doesn't
sure that
sound.
Nicola will make it a will make a very interesting story out of this complex matter. So thanks again for joining us, and Nicola, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much. And hello, everybody. Thank you for giving up your evenings for the bulk of you, I think, looking at where you're from. And thank you to IALC for inviting me to help you. And hopefully we'll make it sound a bit more exciting than just conversions. So we're going to make it a bit more action focused. It is an interactive session. So sorry about that, but I'm going to be asking some questions. And the more that we can help each other, because this is all about community and associations and agents working together, right? So the more we can help each other, the better. So I will be looking for willing volunteers to help me today. And I'll be letting everybody in as they come in. But for the moment, I'm going to share my screen. So let's check that that works. Can everybody see that? Can we see that?
Yeah.
Yes, good. Thank you very much. What I might do is say, I might ask you to mute until you have a question and then unmute and just ask it, just in case there's a bit of background noise or something, or dogs or children and that kind of thing in the background. But what we're going to be talking about today is qualifying. Qualifying means making sure they are or are not the right people for us. So we're talking about qualifying leads to save time, because none of us have any spare time, and capture more bookings. So we're looking at increasing those conversion rates. So one thing I know by working with agents and with schools is that people don't have enough time. So that is the idea. So who am I? I think most of you know me. So I'm founder of No Fluff, director of study travel. I've been doing this for nearly 30 years. And I am a sales coach and trainer, but for the education sector, which is just the best sector in the world to work in. So what our challenge is, so why this topic was chosen, is that not all leads are created equal, and that if we spend time on the leads that just aren't likely to convert, that's time we can't get back. Okay, and it drains our resources, it impacts our conversion rate, and obviously impacts our enrollments. If we're spending time on inquiries that don't have a chance of converting for a multitude of reasons, then we're not spending time chasing the leads that could convert. That's as simple as it is. So our goal is to shift from treating all leads the same. I mean, there are caveats to this, but treating all leads the same, to making sure we focus on the more promising ones, and we go a little bit further with those that are more likely to buy a program from us. All on board with that? Everyone okay? Good. So the caveats, every lead is a lead. So if my big caveat is, if you aren't drowning in leads, you still have to follow up. You still have to do some work on them. Every lead is a lead. We're not going to ignore them unless they have disqualified themselves. So they said, actually, there's no way I could ever get a visa, for example, then they cannot buy what we are selling. So if they cannot buy what we are selling, they are no longer a lead. Everyone else is fair game. Okay. Following up, very important. You know, this is my pet subject, following up. And don't assume. So interestingly, I do a lot of work with independent schools at the moment. And some of their admissions people were defining whether someone was a good lead based on what these people were wearing, the way they spoke, what car they were driving, which was a lot of assumption happening and not always correct. So Steve Jobs, for example, famously wears jeans and a t-shirt every day. You know, these millionaires walk around dressed in quite casual stuff, not designer gear. We cannot assume things. And I think I'm pretty good at sales, but I have definitely been wrong. Definitely been wrong. People that I think are definitely going to go ahead and buy and then haven't. And then there are people that I thought there's no way. It's just not right. I'm not getting the good vibes. And then they go ahead. So you cannot assume. So we have to take our own assumptions and our own weird criteria out of our head. We need to base it on fact, really. Sales is a bit of instinct, and there's a bit of charm, and there's a bit of love and passion, but it's also process. So we go back to the process when we want to make more sales, okay? And then we add in our magic after that. Right, so which ones out of these are worth most of your time? This is a pretty obvious chart. So we're going to say generally the green, these two here are worth most of our time. Maybe this one as well. Probably not red and orange. I hope you can all see that. The faces should indicate if you can't see the colours. But what we want to know, really, because we have no time, is how we treat each of these differently. Okay, so we do not know which of these is a good lead until we have qualified them. So this person here could be dressed like Steve Jobs. They could be uncommunicative, so they just don't give us any information in the forms or don't really sound interested. So we give them 1 star and we don't really follow them up. Whereas we've got super excited puppy over in the green. It's like, yeah, I really want to go. I really want to go and learn this language in your school, and it's amazing. It's great. And you're just thinking, yeah. And then they just go quiet and they don't buy from you. Has everybody had that? I imagine we've all seen this. Yeah, we've all seen this. Okay. So we cannot judge by that, especially if we don't know them very well. So our job is to define who we want to work on most, right? Who we're going to spend our time on. We don't really want to spend time on those that we don't think are going to buy, but it all comes down to qualification. So what we're trying to do is spend more time on these top 3, the yellow, the lime, and the green colour. We're going to put those in one workflow. Does anybody have more than one workflow for their leads? No? I'm just trying to say. If you do, please put it in the chat. And in fact, say hello to each other in the chat as well. Hello and where you're from. That's always nice because we're supposed to be being social, aren't we? We're not in a room, so we can't hug each other. Right. So we've got workflow number 1, which is our main workflow. This is the ones that we think are probably going to buy. They're worth spending time on. They're saying all the right stuff. We're feeling good. Workflow 1. Workflow 2 is the ones we're not so sure about. We're going to spend a bit less time there. But because a lead is a lead and you've spent money getting them to inquire, right? You've spent money on your website, on your social media, on your ads, your campaigns, and your team getting the inquiries in. We're still going to spend some time on them, but possibly not as intensively. Okay, so I would always recommend 2 workflows. If you're from a small agency or a small school and you don't have much people power, you may just need 1 workflow if this is a bit overwhelming. But this is just what I would recommend as good practice. And you're just going to take away 1 or 2 things from this to improve, hopefully. Right. So what we need to do is spot who our top ones are, don't we? We need to spot them early. And this is called qualifying. That's all. We need to qualify them early. The earlier we can qualify them, the more time we save and the higher our conversion rate. Okay, that's what we're looking for in sales. I'm looking for a good conversion rate and less time. That's what I'm looking for. So anyone that wants to buy, I want to get them to buy faster if I can. And I want to get as many as I can. They're the 2 main things that I will be looking for in a pipeline. So we're going to do 3 things, really. Trying to keep it simple. And obviously, if you've got any questions, just unmute yourself or pop it in the chat. We're going to look for buying signals. Okay, we're going to go over those in a minute. We're going to use qualifying questions. Now, these work best on a consultation call or over Zoom or on a phone call or in a meeting. can work via email, but it's harder because you haven't got the two-way conversation, but it can work. And then we're looking for red flags, so we can put them in the workflow number 2. Sounds really simple when I said there's only 3 things to do. Only 3 things to do. We're all good with that. Okay, so this is where we all join in. What makes them a right fit? What we're looking to do is make a list. So if you know anything about me, you know I like you to get you to do stuff. I like you to walk away with something. So I want you to make a list of what is your right fit student. Okay? So we're looking for these buying signals. So here's a couple to get you started. So it might be they say, I would like to come and study French, English, German in July for 3 weeks. That's quite a good lead, right? They've got a bit of an idea of what they want. We quite like that. We've got to find out the other things, but they're talking time frames. That's a buying signal. If they're saying, I've looked at your prices and I would like to have 2 weeks in November on so-and-so course, if they're asking about prices, they're talking money, they've had a look, that's a good buying signal. Anything to do with the course or the schools, if they're talking to an agent and they're saying, I've seen this school on your website, anything specific, it's a buying signal. These are all good things. And also, if they've gone and looked at your competitors, that is also a buying signal. It is not an obstacle. Quite often come across this where they say, well, they've been to my competitors and they've seen that they're cheaper or they've got this extra thing. But if they're inquiring to you, they are not yet sold. In fact, they are a stronger lead. If they've been shopping around for people like you, but they're talking to you, that's like as hot as they can come. We love that. I love those leads. Don't be put off if they start talking about your competitors. Okay, so what we're going to do is work out what makes them a right fit. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And I want you to tell me. So pop in the chat or unmute yourself. What is your perfect student? You're probably going to have a few. So is there anyone here that only offers adult programs, for example? Yeah, Alan? So your perfect student is going to be over 18, I'm assuming?
Correct. I mean,
over 18.
My perfect student is the 45-year-old human resources director of a multinational company who was for 2 weeks executive program.
Lovely. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we know a rough age. We know any particular countries or anywhere?
Preferably Europe, Brazil, or Japan.
Okie dokie.
And preferably not the Middle East, because we've got rather more Middle Eastern students than we can actually deal with.
Right. Great answer, actually. So what we're looking for as well, and this all might depend on the time of year, right? Because it might be that there's a load of Middle Eastern students right now, but maybe later on in the year there aren't. It might be in summer that some of you have lots of Italian students, for example, or Spanish, but then in November you don't. So it can change and flex. But for Alan, he knows that he's looking for an adult, he's looking for a professional, ideally in Europe, that wants to come for a couple of weeks and do this particular program or a variation thereof. Great list. So that's qualifying. So if they've put down their date of birth and they're from Germany and they've put their profession down and they're an HR professional, brilliant, we're in. They're like a total green light. Does anybody else have anyone that they would look for? So would you look for, so if they're for juniors, actually, you would probably be looking for the parents to inquire, is that right? And if you're an agency, so you would be looking for who is your perfect client, or who would qualify to get your time, your most precious resource? Who would that be? Anyone got any? I'm going to go into the chat because you're all being dead shy with me now. Oh, Betty, all the way.
Come on, to let you know.
Ah, Fabiana.
I think that for me, I might be totally wrong here, but I get very excited when I get a recommendation.
Lovely, yes.
So there is a lot of time for recommendations. I like those.
I love that. Absolutely. So if we're kind of going on the red to the green scale that we had, so bright green would be the right age, the right nationality, that wants the right program, and has been referred.
Yeah.
Perfect. There's no, that's like a 90% chance probably of closing. So if we're scoring them like 1 to 10, 10 being super hot, really likely to go ahead, they'd be like around the 9.5.
Yeah.
Just as they walk into you. Perfect. Thank you very much, Fabian, for being brave and unmuting yourself. I love that. Anybody else? Dilek, thank you. Young adults, let's have a look. Young adults who would like to proceed to uni pathways and need a specific IELTS score. Great. Exactly. So, and where are you based? Turkey?
Yes, we are based in Istanbul.
In Istanbul.
And mostly we also provide English language lessons in Istanbul. So up to a certain level, like B1, they are okay. But after that, they need a challenge. They need a push up. And this is how I encourage them to send abroad for, for a specific target. And my favorites are always, yes, master's students, professional students who has a specific target.
Lovely. So they're usually of a particular age, right?
Yes, because we are also consulting as UCAS, consulting them as UCAS application process consultants. So mostly our students are from this age group.
Wonderful.
But
okay.
I'm trying my best to send Ellen the favorite ones. I'm sending it to
And this is it. So as an agent, you probably have various ideal clients, right? So you're going to have your UCAS university masters people, and then you're going to have your professionals, and you may have parents of, 15, 16-year-olds or whatever those different markets are. But the point is, that when they inquire, if they have been referred, bingo, we love that. If they're of the right age, great. If they're looking for a master's, fantastic. If they're looking for a master's in an English-speaking country, I guess that's another tick. So you're creating a list of what makes your great type of client, what makes a great inquiry. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Abby, thank you, Dilek. So that's an idea of what it might be. So it might be demographics like age, nationality, not really gender, none of you, well, unless it's, I guess, a boarding school, but you don't really deal with those. Geographic area, potentially, if they've been referred or if they're coming in cold, there's like a list of how hot they could be, okay? So let's think about who would be more in the red zone. So who wouldn't really be a great fit? And so my favorite is always the form that comes into your email that doesn't fill in everything and just says, hi. We all had you go, hi, or can you help with the visa or something? We just think, really? Are you really? So that usually is quite a low scoring lead. Would we agree with that? Okay. And so for Alan, if he gets a lead for, a 15-year-old that wants, I don't know, so you do summer programs, don't you, Alan?
So we do nobody under 18. So
right. So anyone under 18, that's a red. So either they go into workflow 2 and you might send them on to someone else, like a fellow school, or that you just say, sorry, we can't help you, and then you get rid of it because you need to spend time on the leads that are qualified.
I would add to that those students from countries where the prospect of getting a visa is vanishingly small. So we tend to be very short in our responses with applications from Pakistan, for example, or from Afghanistan, simply because we know they can't get the visa. And so there's no point wasting a lot of time on it.
There you go. So that's what we're looking for. So when I work with teams, quite often what I'm doing in that sales function is trying to create a standard operating procedure, which sounds really boring, really, really boring. But I love a process. So if we've got checklists and if we've got a process that we can follow, then you don't have to do all the work. You can pass some of it on to somebody else, potentially. So if you have a team, you could say, okay, if a lead comes in and they're from Pakistan and they're under 16 or whatever the criteria are, we're going to send them this email. If, however, they are over 18 from a European country and have said this, then they go into this other workflow. Okay, so then what we're trying to do is find ways that we can just go like this and then the sales come out. That's what we're doing. So in terms of agency-wise, you would do the same. So if they fit the criteria of the products that you sell, great, they go into workflow 1. If they don't, they go into workflow 2. That's the way I deal with it. So even if you only have one workflow, I want you to think about how much time you're spending on them. So you're going to spend more time on the hotter leads than you are the cooler leads. But you need to define them. Otherwise, you're going to just treat everybody the same and use the same amount of time. But that said, if you don't have many leads, it's worth a try following them all up. So that is the caveat that I would have with that. So let me go back in. So I would love you all, whoops, let's get rid of that. I would love you all to leave this with a list of who is a right fit and who is not a right fit. Right, here we go. There we go. Should be able to see that again. So these are our clients, and it might be this is the right fit for DLEC. This might be your right fit for your master's student, and this might be the questions that you need answered for your executive student, etc. So create a list of qualifying criteria. Okay, and these are your buying signals. There are more. These are some of them. Referral, it was a really good one actually, Fabiana. So that's a great one we can put on. Age could be another. Likelihood of getting a visa could be another. So anything that is a signal that they could proceed is great. They go a little bit further up the scale, the more of those that they tick. Okay, so asking the right questions. I didn't want to just write a list of questions you could ask. That wasn't very exciting. So I've put, if you WhatsApp me and just say hello or Nicola, I don't really mind what you say. I will send you a list, like a PDF of questions that you can just adapt yourself. But asking qualifying questions early, I'm going to say early, is really, really important, because the earlier you ask, the better. Now, I did this on an exercise with a group of salespeople for quite a big group. And one of them did not want to talk about money at all, didn't want to ask about budget. However, we sell programs that 95% of the time people have to pay for. I realize there are some scholarships and other things happening, but they need to have the money to be able to do it. So I'm going to say that I know it's all about the student, and I know it's the academic success and educational journey of those students, but at the end of the day, they need to be able to pay for it. We all agreed. I'm allowed to be the bad cop on this one. So we need to ask them questions, including one about money. And it's how you do that, but also when you do that. So for me, the earlier, the better. And then I'm going to talk about that one question about money. There are lots of qualifying questions, but that one question about money can feel really awkward when we're talking about their education, especially something like a master's or, a long-term program or an IALC prep or something, that's vital for their future. But at some point, we need to talk about the cash. So one way to do it is saying, have you looked at our prices? Do you know what the prices are for this program, or would you like me to explain it? Which doesn't sound too awkward, but still we're talking about money and they know that there's money involved. If they say, oh, I was hoping for a scholarship, then they're probably not right for you. And then you can move on. You can direct them to wherever you want to direct them and move on to another lead. You're not going to slam the phone down and say, go away, but we're going to deal with it nicely. But the sooner we can ask the question, the better. So money is the tricky one. That's the way I find easy to ask it. Have you seen the prices, or would you like me to go through it with you? Now, for the agents, you might want to say, have you got a budget in mind? Do you know what kind of investment you're ready to make into your masters? Or should we go through that? I can help you with that. But you need to talk about money early. There are other things we need to talk about. So other things would be who's involved in the decision. Because if you're dealing with an 18-year-old that is making quite an investment in this study abroad trip, then we need to know if we kind of need to know if it's their money or if someone else is paying. Because as a mother of two 20-ish year olds, they're still not paying for this stuff. I'm paying for this stuff. So who is involved in that decision? It might be they are the main decision maker, but there are influencers as well, like parents or grandparents or friends. Who are you going to discuss this with? Who else is going to be involved in the decision? Who's your trusted partner? Would they like to come onto the call as well with us? So involve the influencers if you can, and decision makers, because we need to win them over as well. Because I bet there are times where you've had a lead, a consultation call, particularly for you agents, where you've done so much work actually, and you've given them all of the information, and then they've gone away, probably discussed it with people, and then just ghosted you. They've just not replied, or they've said, oh, I've gone elsewhere. It's really frustrating. So if we can get the decision makers into the process early, then brilliant. We're more likely to win and increase that conversion. Okay. So I can send you a load of questions on that. There's no point just teaching you how to ask questions. Red flags. So this is another interesting one. So we know that for Alan, for example, if they're under 16, that's a red flag. They can't buy. What other red flags do we have? I'm going to stop sharing here and chat to you again. So what puts you off? What makes you think it's not a good lead? Can anyone help with that one? What is not a good lead?
Excuse me. In any student or indeed agent contacting you who's clearly not done any research at all on what it is you do.
Okay, so asking random questions.
Yeah. I mean, you know, someone who comes. If we have an agent that comes to me and asks, oh, and can you tell me about your junior programs? My suspicion is that we're probably not going to be a great combo.
Yeah.
Because you know they haven't even bothered looking at the website, because our website all over it says we don't take under 18s. And you know we're so clearly an adults only, and with an emphasis on pre-masters, pre-sessional courses, 30+ executive programs, teacher training, all of which pretty much suggests that actually if you're 14, you're not going to be terribly welcome.
You're not going to be allowed in.
Yeah,
not going to go through the door.
Yeah.
Good. And I think actually that puts you in terms of qualification, a really good, strong position, because you know exactly what you can and cannot offer. Let's have a look. Dilek, my red flag profiles are always the ones who find MEC education at a fair. That's interesting. What do you mean?
I mean, several times we joined, we participated in some fairs, but the profiles came to us from those fairs. They just researchers wandering around and asking questions, looking for scholarships, and even for a language school, they're asking. The first question is how much, without giving me any information, is how much does it cost to go to a language school abroad? So abroad means that at any place apart Turkey. And how much means how many weeks, what course, and intensive or not. So similarly, what Alan said already, that people with no knowledge, they just find themselves at a fair, and then they ask questions, and then later on they sometimes think that, okay, MEC education team is a professional team, so we should ask them because they seem the best. Because I'm not going to be modest, but it is always like this. My team is not that young, so they trust us, but they ask those lower level questions a lot. So my favorites are coming from the references always. And because we have already students who we teach and who we consult, so I mainly recommend them to go to a course and they follow up the steps I tell them. So it's easier for me. Maybe this is only something special to MEC education.
Maybe it is. But I think it brings up some good points, actually. So those people, and someone else has said scholarships in the chat as well. So those who are looking for scholarships or that can't really afford it, they're already saying, oh, that's expensive or something. They're going to go into workflow number 2. And that workflow number 2 can all be done on automation, actually. And it might be, say, we don't offer advice on scholarships, but maybe you could look at this website or maybe this online course. So go and do that and let us know how you get on or something. And it might be that you follow up with them in 3 months or 6 months and say, did you ever do that course? Again, this could be automated. It's the sake of a really quick email. I would schedule those for when you've got a quieter time, you know, after you've done your busy period and you've got time to kind of follow up your pipeline that's gone a bit cold and just put them in there. So that would be workflow number 2. They can still go on your newsletter list and hear from you. But I love that. But yes, Betty said the same, actually, red flag students that are looking for scholarships. Yeah, absolutely. Fabiana's nodding. So this is the big red flag. This is like the massive red flag. Okay. Another red flag for Betty, another red flag is students who want to work and study and they want to pay for their course this way. So they want to go and work and then pay. So they don't necessarily want to pay before they go is definitely a red flag for me. So other red flags we have mentioned are unlikely to be able to get a visa, the wrong age or student profile for what you're offering. So, you know, if you only do juniors, obviously, then you're not going to want people over 18. If they want, I don't know, academic prep and you don't offer that, that's another red flag. But you can still deal with them. You can still offer them other alternatives. But they're just not going to be your hot leads, are they? They're not going to be in the green area there. So having a list of those red flags, again, clarifies your mind and gives you permission almost, because generally we are lovely people in this sector and we want to help everybody, but we don't have any time. So we can't help everybody. So we've got to spend our time helping those that we are able to facilitate. And for those we can't, we might put them in this second workflow. And we're still available if they end up being suitable for what we offer, right? But we just have permission to deal with them in a different way. Okay, going back to my presentation. So we need that list of red flags. Okay, so we've got a list of green flags, buying signals, and we've got a list of red flags, those that aren't likely to buy. I've got another couple here. People that send you their wrong phone number or wrong email if it's on a form. Obviously, they're just dead leads because you can't get hold of them anyway. My pet peeve, I see this so much, bless you. I know it's really frustrating. They just say hi on the form or hello. When we follow them up, they've got no idea who we are or what we're talking about. So this happens a lot if we're doing call work so quite often I'll go into a school, for example. Happens with agencies as well, where I'll say, right, let's call the leads that we've got in, and we'll call them and they'll go, who are you? What's this about? And you go, well, it's about this program that you asked for. And they've got no idea because they were just doing it on a whim. They're not particularly serious. And we would still be nice and kind and send them all the information, you know, the generic stuff, but they would go further down on the scale. Having unrealistic expectations. So can I become fluent in English in a week, please? That kind of weird expectation. I mean, no is the answer. But we can do this, you know, we can help you do this. So it's just a different answer, but it's less, we'd still follow up, but it's less likely to convert, right? And things we've already mentioned. So they want juniors when you only offer adults, for example, or you only offer masters or pre-masters. Okay. And again, my caveat, a lead is still a lead. Okay. So unless you cannot get hold of them, there's still potential. So I've definitely had people to say, send me your information. And I just think, well, you haven't looked at my website. You don't know what I do. We've never engaged before. And then they've bought something. And I'm surprised because there's been none of that interaction that we expect because we're making an assumption. I've definitely done it before. So if you have time, follow up every lead. That's my caveat. I've worked with schools that just don't have enough leads before. So then I'm making them follow up every lead to increase our chances. But if you've got quite a lot of inquiries coming in, So if you've got great campaigns and social media campaigns, and you've got leads coming in, and you only have a certain amount of time to do with, let's say, 50, 60% of them, then you're going to need to prioritize. And that's what we've just been doing. Right, so we're going back to our phases. So which ones are worth most of your time? So if you've got not many leads, all of them are worth your time. If you've only got 10 leads a week, you've got time to deal with 10 leads a week. If you're like the big chain that I'm working with, they get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of leads every week. Each person in the team would probably get 100 to 200 leads per week, depending on the time of year. So they have to have different workflows. And actually, they have 2 workflows per program, actually. So that's how big it would get. So let's say they do a pre-master's program. They would have, these are the criteria for a green up here, and these are the criteria for a red. For their general language programs, it's going to be different criteria. And then they work it into their workflow. So hopefully you've got an idea which are worth most of your time. Right. Workflow 1, workflow 2. I think I keep talking about that, so I'm going to move on. So why are we going to have 2 workflows? Again, I think you've got it. We're going to be as efficient as we can because nobody has any time. But you can also tailor the communication as well. So with the big company I was just talking about, they have their pre-masters workflow 1 and workflow 2. They have their general language program workflow 1, workflow 2. So they can tailor those follow-ups. They know exactly what they're talking about when they're contacting them. And they have a CRM. I don't know how many of you have a CRM or some sort of system, and they will load in there, and they actually lead score. So they will give them a mark out of 10. So anything 7, 8, 9, or 10 gets the priority. They get more phone calls, more WhatsApps, more texts, more touch points. Anything lower, they get fewer, unless they get less busy later on. Oh, that's funny, Eleonora. The red flag when they write the full email in the subject line. Oh, bless them. It's like they don't know how to work email. What's that about? So what we're trying to do here is maximize our efficiency, tailor our communication, because you know, right, that if you tailor and personalize, you're more likely to convert. We all know that. And the goal is to increase our conversion rates. So I would be very interested. I don't know how to do a poll in this thing, actually. Anyway, let's have a quick look in the chat. Please put in if you know your conversion rate from inquiry to buying. You don't have to tell me what it is, just yes or no in the chat. Because normally people don't actually know that. But that's one thing we would seek to improve. Yes or no? Brilliant. There's a couple of yeses. Do you know your conversion rate from getting in an inquiry to buying? More or less, yes. So you would like a guesstimate. No, more or less. Okay. Okay, if it's more or less, I would say you probably need to go and tighten that up because we can't improve what we can't measure, I would say. So if you know your conversion rate from all inquiries through to bookings is about 10%, I'm just picking a number, that's not the average, then what we want to do is get to 11% next month, and then 12%. And as soon as we get those little 1%, we make more money, right? The good conversion rate, Claudia, is such a big question. I hate answering this because it really varies. I think and it depends on the quality of your leads and the quality of your marketing, but going from inquiry through to actual booking for a school is about 15 to 25% conversion rate. For agents, it's higher, depending on the market. So again, the conversion rate for a master's inquiry is very different from a conversion rate for a language provider, right? But usually from consultation call with an agent or meeting, whatever that is, through to booking, so a bit further along the pipeline, usually when I work with an agent, they're around 50%, worst case, 50%, and we are aiming for 75 to 85% conversion from the consultation call. That's what we're aiming for. But you start from wherever you are. If you aren't at that conversion rate, just aim for 1% more than where you are now. It's like me trying to go to the gym tomorrow and run 10K. It's not going to happen. I'm going to have to do 5K or 6K first, if indeed I could do that. So you're not aiming to just kind of get up to that conversion rate straight away. But basically, you're looking to increase your conversion rate. So measuring it. And it's really simple. You just take in how many inquiries you get in every month. So get someone to count them up. And then how many bookings you get every month. And over 6 months, you're going to have a really nice average. And obviously, the more data you collect, the better. What I would usually, and if you have a CRM, it will do this for you, of course. So what I would measure is how many inquiries get through to qualified stage. So how many inquiries you get through to tick, tick, tick on that list that we just talked about. And then from that list, how many go on to the consultation call or whatever your next stage of your pipeline is. So that's another conversion rate. And then consultation call or quote sent or meeting held, whatever it is, through to booking is another conversion rate. So then what we do is look to increase those conversion rates all the way up the pipeline. And a small increase can have a massive, massive effect, especially if you're selling more expensive programs. So if you can, in fact, it's worth having a look. Don't do it now. It'll take you too long, but go and have a look and just think, okay, I'm going to measure my conversion rate for the next month. And then we're going to try and see if we can increase it for the month after. If we can increase it by 1%, how much is that worth to me? And if we can increase it by 5%, how much is that worth to me? And then suddenly you're focusing on converting, not just obviously giving the amazing advice and supplying those amazing programs that you already do, but doing a little bit of business work behind it is quite useful. But you're just aiming to do little incremental increases. And we're obviously looking to avoid wasting time, but also it's really good for that customer experience. So if you've gone through hours of chats and consultations and meetings and they're not right, it's really awkward to then say, oh, I'm sorry, we haven't got anything for you. And you've wasted their time as well. So it is in the best interest. Right, so what we're looking at is if there are, and you can do your own scale and your own criteria, but they go into workflow 2 if they are low scoring, but they are still qualifying. They might have disqualified because they put their whole email in the subject line, or they could never get a visa or whatever. But assuming they might be able to qualify, we're going to follow them up a little bit less. You can use probably more automations. They can be added to your newsletter list. Again, pop in the chat if you have a newsletter strategy. Do you actually have a newsletter strategy that drives sales, not just inquiries? That would be good to know. Anyone? Anyone have a newsletter strategy, or just yes or no? Give me some ideas for my next webinars and stuff. No? No, no, okay. How exciting. I just found my next webinar subject then. Okay, newsletter strategies. If you're sending newsletters, whether by email or WhatsApp, having a strategy around it is part of your sales strategy because you've already captured the lead in your marketing, right? So you've already got the lead in. And then what we want is, Ben, you're very welcome to. And then what we want to do is get those people in our email list to buy stuff from us, right? That's the idea. So you've probably got hundreds, thousands of people on your email list or even on your WhatsApp list. We then need them to get them to buy from us. Eleanor, when there is time, yes, most of the time there isn't. Great. I mean, it's worth spending time. So I do this in a mastermind with some of my clients where we sit down and we make our entire newsletter strategy for the year. So you take a broad view, you know that you've got, I don't know, whatever's coming up, Easter, Chinese New Year, Christmas and stuff. You know that mainly they buy mini stays in this time and they mainly do this at this point. You build your newsletter strategy around it from a broad perspective. You add in stuff like, am I going to do a webinar, for example, or am I going to do an event, in which case you know that all your emails are going to be around that. You build out a strategy. I would highly recommend it. Adam, we've got a basic strategy, but I want to learn more. Okie dokie, right. Well, we haven't got time for that here, but are any of you going to Auckland? Because if you are, happy to talk to you there. If you're going to Auckland, hit me up. That would be lovely. Make an appointment with me and I can help you with it. We could do a very fast one in the meet we have. It'd be like the fastest strategy session in the world. let's do it. It's like a challenge. Okay, so but basically our workflow number 2, we spend less time on it. It's very obvious, spending less time on it. We're going to use automations and templates, of course, to make it easier for us. So DILEC, for example, if you know that they're going to come to you and say, I would like a scholarship for learning English anywhere in the world, can I have that, please? You might have a template that you've prepared saying, unfortunately, we can't help you in this situation, but you might want to go and look at this course and this course, best regards. And then you just go, hit template, off you go. So you're spending less time. Okay. Green follow-ups, greens and yellows. Workflow number 1. So this is where the real work happens. So if they're high scoring, and you decide what that is, and it might be everybody because you don't have many leads, okay? In which case this applies to all of them. If you have a lot of leads and we just need to narrow it down, you're going to look at those top numbers, which could be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, could be 7, 8, 9, 10, or if you've got really loads, it could just be the 8s, 9s, and 10s, right? So what we're going to do is develop we're not going to do it now, but I can help you develop your follow-up framework. So if any of you have read my book, you'll know I talk a lot about follow-up, and there's a follow-up framework in it. And if you wanted to WhatsApp me again and just put follow-up on there, then I'll send you a really basic template on it. But we have to follow up more than we realize. We're going to do it more frequently than we feel initially comfortable doing. And actually agents are much better at this than the schools amongst you. So you know that if an inquiry comes in and you've had that consultation, you follow up really quickly, send them the information, then you call them a couple of days later or WhatsApp them, and you keep the momentum up. You keep going because they're a really hot lead. So we follow up more times. And what we're looking for is between, this is a really wide number, 5 and 12 follow-ups, if they are qualified. If they've just asked for a visa, they go into a different workflow. If they're qualified, we're going to do 5 to 12 follow-ups. One of those could be a newsletter, one could be a WhatsApp, one a phone call, one an email. You know, you keep going on. Mix up your methods. So don't always use email. So lots of schools I work with, they love a bit of email. Email's a very, very noisy place. I have hundreds of emails a day. I don't know about you guys. But email's really noisy. You go to the method that your ideal client uses most. So, for example, in Brazil, actually Turkey and MENA region, they love WhatsApp, right? Love a bit of WhatsApp. And it's great because it has really good open rates and it's in their pocket and they're more likely to respond. But if they've stopped responding to those, then maybe move to email or maybe phone them. Okay. And for schools, if you're working with your agents, know your market. So we know that for, Brazil, for example, they love WhatsApp. You need to be WhatsApping your agents if you're not already. You also need to have WhatsApp on your website, because that's how a lot of people want their information these days. So you go to the method that they most want, and if they're not answering you, you change method. So the methods that we've got are email, phone call, WhatsApp, or the local equivalent like WeChat or whatever it might be. We've got DMs, so that if they've contacted you on Instagram, you can contact them back on Instagram. For schools and agents, you've got Study Travel Network, you've got LinkedIn, you've got all sorts of different ways to do that. You've even got snail mail. So not many people use it now, but things like postcards, flyers, things like that can cut through the noise. If you think it's a good lead and worth spending time on, then mix up your methods. And what I would do is the workflow that I have, so if you get a good lead in, you send them personalized content and you're following up that lead for however many follow-ups you decide. Let's say 6 follow-ups, okay? And if they still don't respond to you, it's like crickets, there's nothing happening, then they would probably just go into my email newsletter cadence, right? And I would probably follow them up a bit later. Okay, so I have one agent that I've been chatting to since No Fluffer, so in January, end of January, and I've done some follow-up and we've had a chat and blah, 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 and they've gone a bit quiet, I think because it's been half term and stuff. So I'm going to give them another follow-up next week, and then if I don't hear from them, I'm just going to add them to my mailing list and I'll follow up again in a couple of months. Because things might change, and in a couple of months they've gone, oh yes, absolutely, I need to do that. They just need to see you a bit before that. So resurrect them later. Sounds a bit biblical, doesn't it? But we're trying to resurrect that lead later. So keep following up if they're a good lead. If they're not a good lead, if they're in this workflow, just add them to your newsletters. And if you have time at some point, once every quarter or once every 6 months, try and pick them up again. See if they've got any further into it. Okay, so just to, I'm going to close the chat down. The point of doing this, and this, again, this is probably stuff that you already know. It's just we haven't built a process around it. And especially if you're having other members of your team do any of it, it's good to have a process so you don't have to do everything in your business, right? So we need to manage your time and energy efficiently. We're going to spend time on the people and the actions that move the needle, that get you to where you want to be. So in terms of your follow-up and your qualifying, you're going to need to do some phone calls or WhatsApps or contact. Schedule time in your diary to do that. Okay, because otherwise you go down email rabbit holes and meetings here, and schedule time for those follow-ups. So if you're going to call your workflow number 2 people once every 4 months, put it in your diary to do so you don't forget it. So prioritize the actions that are going to move you forward, and then focusing on that outreach that really impacts conversion. So for example, if you've got a hot lead, or particularly if you've got a lead that has qualified for an expensive program worth a lot of money to your agency or your school, calling them can get them to open your email, part of anything else, but also uncovers lots of things that they won't put in an email. Okay, especially if you're dealing in a language that they don't speak comfortably yet. Of course, that's why we're here. We're going to help them, right? But long email chains, it's fine, but it doesn't always work. Calling them, developing a relationship is going to convert better. Just always is. And I can see already in the room from the chats we've had that when you're talking about schools working with agents, so if a school is looking for more agents or to work better, more effectively with their agents, calling and talking with each other, absolutely golden. That's why we have agent workshops and things, isn't it? Because that relationship is super important. So nurture that relationship. Don't send a cold, generic email. And I'd really love you to consider different workflows for those lead types. And just to, this is part of the book as well that you'll see, but I do put it everywhere. This is how many follow-ups to do. This is very generic across lots of industries. But if you only follow up your leads once, you're making 2% of possible sales. If you follow up between 5 and 12 times, you're making 80% of possible sales, but yet only 5% of you will be doing it. Which means if you're in an industry or a sector or a city or a country that has lots of competition, by doing effective follow-up to qualified leads, you're going to make more sales. This isn't me. This isn't my statistic. It's a proper statistic. This is the follow-up framework. I'm very happy to send you. Just send me a WhatsApp saying follow-up or framework or something. And I can give you this. I can't fill it in for you, but I can give you this. And it just gives you an idea of what to do. So when you're going to follow up, how many days later, how, WhatsApp, email, phone call, what value are you adding? So are you sending them an invitation to a webinar or a consultation call? Are you giving them some fun facts or case studies or videos or whatever it might be? Add some value and ask them to do something so you know they're still alive and interested. So reply with video if you want to see a video, reply or come to our webinar or something. Happy to share that. And then this is me. I will be in Auckland. I'm really very excited about my first trip to New Zealand. So I hope to see you there. In fact, pop in the chat if you're going. And hopefully, yes, but you need a visa. That would be ace. Get there, my lovely. So pop in there. It'd be lovely to see who's going to Auckland. And you can scan this. This is a link to my WhatsApp. It's actually a link to my bot. So I work with a WhatsApp specialist on WhatsApp funnels and stuff. So if you want information on that, give me a shout as well. But anything that you think I might be able to help with, contact me on there, or you can email me, or you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me anywhere, or you can contact IALC and talk to them, and there you will find me. Do we have any questions at all? How are you all doing? Was that useful? Have you thought a little bit more about the processes behind it? You're a bit tired now. It's time to go and have a gin and tonic, maybe. Eleanor's like, yes, it is time for gin and tonic. Good. Lovely. Well, I'm more than happy to help with anything. I'm a big fan of IALC and have been for nearly 30 years now in this industry. So if I can help with something, please do ask me, and I'll be happy to. And if you want any of those cheat sheets or templates or anything, just let me know. Meanwhile, I know that Julia's had to go. She has a sick child at home, so she's had to disappear. So it is left to me to say thank you hugely for coming. I love being part of like a visitor to the IALC family. I'm like the weird aunt that comes in occasionally. That's me. But I will see as many of you as possible in Auckland. But online, I'm always there. So do get in touch. All right. And I think actually someone's just asked about the recording. I think Julia will probably share the recording. I don't send slides out, but you'll have the recording. Any other questions? No. Newsletter strategy, definitely on my radar. Oh, he's coming to Auckland. Alex. Oh, I look forward to an Alex hug. That's exciting. Fabulous. Oh, maybe it's to Betty. What do you suggest when a student says they are picking another agency? Depends when they're saying it and how, Betty. If they're saying it to you on the phone or on a call, you have them on that call. Ask them what it is about the other agency that they like so that you can do better. And then obviously hopefully they'll tell you, and then you do better. It might be that they've got a ridiculous offer on or something which wipes out all their commission or whatever it might be that you can't match. If it's on email, I would say, that's exciting. Tell me where you're going to go. If you think they're a hot lead, if they're still a hot lead and they haven't booked, they are still a hot lead. If they're talking to your competitor and they're going to pick another agency, they haven't picked that other agency yet. So have you booked? Where are you? Where are you going? How exciting. We'll have that conversation. If they're a hot lead. If they've picked another agency, they have the money to buy.
Maybe also to ask, what do I need to do to get your business?
Yeah. What can I do? What we don't want to do is get into a bidding war. That does invite that. When you say, well, they gave me 40% discount on top of whatever else. I mean, it's going to get slightly ridiculous. Say, oh, that's brilliant. That's a really good price. Go with them. That's fantastic. I'm really excited. When you get back, I'm going to get in touch and see how you got on. And then diary to call them, because if they're selling something for 40% less, it's not going to be great. They're going to want a better experience with you, right? Good question though, Betty. Yeah, that's a buying signal. Never be put off by that. If they're talking about your competition, it's a buying signal. That's a good conversation to have. Go with it. Bring it on. I get really competitive when it's like that. Yeah, forget the other agency. Come with me. All right, my lovely people. I will see you all soon. Thank you so much for coming. And I'm sure Julia will be circulating this to everyone that registered. Take lots of care. See you soon. Have a good evening. Bye.
Hi, Nicola.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.